The multiverse, a concept I'd argue everyone watching is well familiar with. Infinite universes with infinite possibilities. I'd say a solid 5 to 10 years ago, the multiverse was well known by comic nerds who were really into those Elseworld storylines. Not making fun, I was one of them. But nowadays, it's seen everywhere. Movies, shows, movies, games, the MCU, and movies. You can ask your mom or like your girlfriend who only watched True Crime and Grey's Anatomy, and she'll probably at least have heard of it. Hey, so I'm making a video, right? And I just want to know if you've like heard of the multiverse.
That's like Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, perfect. Yep, you got it. That's all. Bye.
Oh, okay.
But here lies the problem with the multiverse. Its abundance and the reliance multiple forms of media have on it. I'll try not to make this an MCU video, I swear. An abundance of one thing isn't an issue in itself. I could have Popeyes every day of my life if I didn't care about being 500 pounds. Kinda like fries. Well seasoned and crispy and reliable. But every now and then you're gonna have a batch of those soggy, kinda still potato-y fries. Just through sheer probability. And just like those cold McDonald's fries, some stories that center around the multiverse suck. Some real stinkers. I think I made the analogy clear now. I'll try not to script while hungry next time. The multiverse isn't a poor concept in itself since there's some pretty good stuff to come from it both in and out of the comic book scene. The best examples being Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, one of the best comic book movies in general, and Everything Everywhere All at Once. Even way before comic movies were all the craze, some of the biggest and most influential stories are centered around the multiverse. But I do see the argument for it being too much, like it's everywhere. There's the obvious MCU and DCEU clusterfucks, but it's also prevalent in many unrelated franchises. Mortal Kombat 1's final act was an all-out multiversal war between multiple versions of the same characters. Rick and Morty's whole thing is universe hopping, as well as a bunch of multiplayer video games that bring in different IPs only made sense lore-wise by the multiverse. Games like The Bane of My Existence.
Where the hell's Shaq? Am I stupid? I feel like it would have been over here, right? Oh, f me, that's why.
Multiverses, go figure. The Bane of My Existence again. And Fortnite. But too much of something isn't always a bad thing. I immediately think of the whole superhero fatigue thing, where people question whether they were getting tired of superheroes, or if these new movies and shows were just dog shit. And I'd side with the latter statement because even though we had the Marvels, The Flash, or Jupiter's Legacy, we also had some pretty good stuff like The Batman, The Boys, and Invincible, proving that it's not the concept that's shit, just the execution. Okay, I'll rip the band-aid off now. Before I get into what works and when, and specific examples, I'll get into the most egregious one. The MCU's multiverse debuted more or less with the release of Endgame. Before this, everything we saw happened in one large overlapping story, and it spearheaded the whole connected universe thing that many have tried to recreate since to varying degrees of success. But this is where the story became a lot less coherent with the introduction of timelines, universes, nexus events, nexus beings, anchor beings, absolute points, and canon events if you want to throw in the Spider-Verse in there too, since they're kinda in the same multiverse.
Don't even get me started on Doctor Strange and the little nerd back on Earth 1999.
It's really jumbled and messy as a result of different directors with different ideas and how it all works. Not to say nothing good has come out of it, Deadpool. That was a good one. Okay, I really enjoyed No Way Home 2, I won't lie. And I wouldn't call it unnecessary either. The MCU lore goes back decades, hell, even centuries. And due to real-life licensing issues, they couldn't get the rights to huge characters like from the X-Men or the Fantastic Four. And there would be no good, viable reason in-universe as to why they haven't shown up at all in that time frame. So making movies on these guys still under the MCU, but technically in another universe is the best option. Other than a complete reset, but I doubt that's ever happening. DC isn't safe either. The DCEU has less to show, but their one outing with the whole multiverse thing wasn't amazing. Okay, it was kinda shit. But Sasha Cal, so... I guess it was technically a different timeline in the same universe rather than its own parallel universe, but whatever, man. I know the CW shows have some funky multiverse Nazi shit going on too, but I haven't watched them in years, and I don't plan to. You can't make me. Okay, now on to other multiverses. I know I threw some shade at the very beginning of the video, but stories told from Valorant's multiverse and Dead by Daylight's Omniverse are made very well. Valorant benefits from having its own condensed story with its own characters without needing wacky explanations as to why a pre-established character is in this brand new world. Ahem, cough cough, Fortnite.
Every time that you leave your spot, your girlfriend call me like, come on, no.
So Riot made its own world with its own story and world building. Alpha Earth is home to the Valorant Protocol, a covert ops organization of mostly superheroes, essentially, and the main antagonistic threat are their doubles from the Mirrorverse. Omega Earth is essentially the same as Alpha Earth, thus the whole mirror thing, except their world is falling apart. There are other universes like KO's alternate reality, but it doesn't take center stage with dozens of branching timelines all taking place at the same time within the story being told to us. All in all, this makes it feel more digestible and grounded, at least as grounded as a multiverse story can be. Dead by Daylight is not grounded, however, but it's able to pull off the why is everyone here. Dead by Daylight, the game at least, takes place within its own universe / pocket dimension outside of time and space where the main antagonist, the entity, controls everything as a god. This entity feeds off raw emotions, mainly fear, hope, and bloodlust. There are characters original to the game, of course, but there are tons of licensed characters in the game with more to come. Dudes like Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, even D&D's Vecna. The lore-based reason as to why they're here is because the entity looks for people and creatures that can provide these intense emotions, then kidnaps them and places them in the realm or this universe to play cat and mouse in the trials, i.e. what you actually play. The entity brings an infinite amount of the same killers and survivors into the trials, which is why you can play with multiple of the same survivor in one game. The entity scouring the multiverse to find beings that can cause fear or pain, or people who have been through horrifying situations to put them in this eternal game for its own benefit is a premise I can get behind. Only part you have to suspend your disbelief on is why guys like Ash Williams and Leon Kennedy are running away from like Chucky or Amanda Young. I do like how the casting of Frank Stone gave us more insight on the infinite reach the entity has, and the scope of the DBD Omniverse. Infinite possibilities, all true and untrue, fact and fiction, it works. Granted, DBD and Valorant are multiplayer games first and foremost, and not full-fledged movies and shows, but there's still a lot of time and effort put into their lore and stories with character descriptions, extra tidbits, cinematics, voice acting, and so on. Rick and Morty does the multiverse thing pretty well, I feel. It's helped out by the show's general bizarreness and the sci-fi setting. If there were to be any gripes from me, I'd say it does lower the stakes. Knowing that world-ending catastrophes can be solved by just finding another universe where everything's the same. But I will admit that it's written pretty well for the most part. At least the Cronenberg world lets some pretty good stuff. Can't say the same for this thing, though. The Parmesan thing was kind of funny, I guess. I think where the idea of the multiverse really shines is with one-offs or short Elseworld stories. Seeing characters that we know and love in these brand new situations in alternate worlds without needing to adhere to established canons. Kinda like official fanfiction. The possibilities are literally endless, and there is no way you can possibly fumble this premise. There is definitely a way to fumble this premise. MCU rant one last time. What If was a fantastic idea and one of the shows I was most excited for back when I heard of it. And there was definitely some fun and interesting stuff in here. But they MCU-ified the show by needing it to build up to something greater. All these fun and silly anthologies brought together for one big battle across the multiverse. Or whatever this is. I can almost get behind Ultron becoming this big bad that becomes so powerful he's a threat to the multiverse and not just his own universe. But I feel like a melancholic ending where Ultron loses his purpose after completing his goal would have been way better. His fight against Strange was pretty cool though, and there was no logical reason as to why the Watcher would choose these guys out of all infinite possibilities other than these are the wacky main characters of this season. But you know what did What If even better than What If? Fiona and Cake was amazing, and it was so fun to see these characters in a slightly more mature setting set years down the line. Fiona and Cake takes this idea of what if this and what if that and does it better. Fiona hops through realities and sees other possibilities like what if Marceline was raised by the Vampire King, or what if the Lich had won. The Lich's story being a very solid parallel to Ultron's ending. A villain who wanted to destroy their universe and succeeding, except the Lich did stop at his goal. We see him jaded after completing his mission. We even see Farmworld, one of my favorite things to come from the Adventure Time series. But even though we see all these alternate versions of our beloved characters, we don't do a final round 'em up to defeat the big bad in the end. The characters served their purpose within the show, but didn't overstay their welcome. Hell, even then, Fiona and Cake did follow the same few characters with a set overarching story from the very beginning, so it could have sold me on a team-up storyline as opposed to What If, which was presented to us as an anthology, and would have worked better as one. That's all I can think of. What was the problem with the multiverse? I don't know. Execution, I guess? Thanks for listening to me blab about nerdy stuff. Out of town for a while, but I plan on streaming Zoocosis on the day it drops. And the next video I'll be working on is How Powerful Is Bill Cipher, which I plan to upload at the end of September or early on in October. Subscribe to see when that's out, and I'll see you guys later.